This is for you, Greer. I hope you're watching. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to try to go as quickly as possible. I think just Caitlin was absent yesterday, right? Was somebody else absent? All of you are
You
absent?
messaged me and I messaged
Biology EOC?
Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Biology, yes.
Oh. Okay, here's what you have to know. What am I doing? Strong arm diplomacy. Strong arm diplomacy in almost all of the world means when people were trying to decolonize, the strongest, biggest, strongest people took over until they get a bullet in the back of the head, and then what? Then the new strong man until they get a bullet in the back of the head. What's happening currently in the Sudan and in Yemen? Civil war. This is still happening from 140 years ago, ever since what? Say it better. Did you say specifically? Scramble for Africa. What year? 1884 and 85. It is called the Berlin Conference. Ever since then, all of this, ever since. Do you need to go somewhere else so we can see? Can you see? Okay. France gave, I'm going fast. France gave African colonies choice to remain in French Empire or independence. They repeat a lot of this. So that's why we got through a lot of it. It's literally redundant. I don't know why. Okay, Algeria. So there's certain places that I need you to know. You need to know France and Algeria. It's called the Battle for Algiers. Can you go back to the map? Can you make a map show up? There it is. So, you guys look at me. Do you remember Al-Andalusia? What is it? Muslim Spain, and it's ever since when? Literally since the beginning of Islam in that first century. Does anybody know when Islam starts? Because you have to. 600. Did you just cheat?
No.
600. Ever since 600. And here's the important part. It went from the Middle East. Remember that it was all here, Mecca and Medina. Does everybody remember Mecca and Medina? But then, like wildfire, spread across what? What is this called? North Africa. Extremely different than sub-Saharan Africa. Why don't we say South Africa? Because South Africa is a country. So they refer to all of this as sub-Saharan Africa, and this is literally called North Africa, and it has been Muslim forever. The only place since the beginning of Islam that undoes it is who? Reconquista of Spain. Everybody remember? How do they do it? The Inquisition. The Spanish Inquisition. They do it through torture devices and torture and everything else in the Spanish Inquisition. And they get Spain back. They get rid of whom? Christians? No, they are Christian. They get rid of Muslims and Jews. Everybody got it? The Reconquista of Spain. So, all of this is Muslim. Algeria is Muslim, and it has been since the 650? 650? And so a lot of the infighting in all of these places is because it is massively Muslim. And who are the colonizers? Christians. Christians are the ones coming in and taking over. Go ahead. So, Algeria began a war of independence. Many French people lived in Algeria, complicating independence efforts. They lived in Algeria because it was a settler colony. People moved there and had been there for generations. So when there was a war of independence, they said, no, we're here. I was born and raised here. My mother was born and raised here. My grandfather was born and raised here. This is our country. They did the same thing in Vietnam, right? What do the people in Algeria say? We've been here for thousands of years. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. You 2 or 3 generations, maybe 4. Us? All of time. Look at me. Look at me. What? All of time. Not me. Algeria. Algeria, what? All of time. Look at my skin. I've been here for all of time, not you. So, independence movement were led by the National Liberation Front, which used guerrilla tactics. What's guerrilla tactics look like in the late 20th century and early 21st century? Buildings, cities, houses, places in the city. Go ahead. Algeria was granted independence in 58. Intense violence broke out as soon as they got it, as FLN forces killed up to 150,000 French people who refused to leave. And it starts a war from 58 to 62, when I was born. 58 to 62. Go ahead. Look, dictators. Everywhere, Latin America, all of the decolonizing places. Why dictators? They don't have any heritage of democracies or of anything else. They don't have any other heritage except just what? Strong-arm diplomacy. Go ahead. Oh, FLN established dictatorship, but military overthrows and religious tensions between Muslims and Christians intensified. Angola. This is the thing that we have to talk about. You have to remember that in the Berlin Conference, because it was a big damn map in Berlin, then that's how they drew the lines. What did they do with tribes? Broke some of them up, but even worse, shoved together some that were violently opposed to each other. And so now what? Still 140 years later, fighting for what? Control of the country. Fighting for control of the country. Independent after war with Portugal, civil war between I don't care. All you have to know is what? Many of the places in Africa were fighting because their tribes were smashed together, and now they're all trying to reign supreme, to be the power in that country. You have to know this, you have to know this, you have to know this. You have to know that the British, the French, and somebody else, Israel. British, French, and Israel tried to take the Suez Canal back after Gamal Abdel Nasser takes the Suez Canal. He is the leader of Egypt. The canal is what territory? Egypt, right? So he nationalizes the canal. The British, the French, and Israel try to take it back. Why aren't they successful? Who's not part of it? The USA. The USA is not part of it, so they failed. So British forces left Suez Canal zone, and then Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized the canal. Go ahead. Oh, no, go. We shall defend the Suez Canal with our blood and strength, and we shall meet aggression with aggression and evil with evil. We will defend the grains of sand in the desert to the last drop of our blood. Arab nationalism. Gamal Abdel Nasser, many of the other people are trying to get rid of what? The Sykes-Picot Agreement and rub out the lines in the Middle East. Just Arab nationalism. Suez Crisis occurred when all three of those countries tried to take over. USA wasn't involved, so they failed. Go ahead. And then Nasser defied the West by accepting financial aid from the Soviet Union to build the Aswan Dam. Why do you build a massive, huge, one of the biggest dams on Earth? We do it, yeah, here in Tennessee. We do it all the time. What kind? Hydroelectric power. Decolonization in Southeast Asia. Okay, I'm just going to say it. Remember, we've talked about it already, but it's important. You have to review. 1887, I think, something around there. Are you listening? 1887, something like that. It's all that time period, right? 1884, 1885. It's all that time period that everybody's going over and trying to colonize the earth because Britain's been doing what? The empire? Where the sun never sets. If you don't know the dates, you have to know them. 1837, and she dies in 1901 when all of the crown heads, or what if you say 1900? What if you say 1900? Good enough. Nobody cares. If you say that Queen Victoria died in 1900, 1837, 1900, who cares? Why do I like it that you know the crown heads of Europe? It shows that most of the earth is not what? Democracies. Most of them are still czars and kaisers and kings and queens and everybody else. Everybody's trying to take over places before there's not any left. Even Teddy Roosevelt does it with the Spanish-American War. What do we take with the Spanish-American War? That's our last attempt. We were colonizing with Manifest Destiny, remember? So the Spanish-American War is the first time that we're kind of getting in the mix, and the Panama Canal. And what do we get from this that's very important in the Spanish-American War? It's a splendid little war. It's like 3 months. What? The Philippines. And what policy do we put? The open door policy, because what are we not part of? Spheres of influence. So we're like, oh no, it's all over, it's all open, all of us, right? So, and then who do we puppet?
Cuba.
Until who comes? Fidel Castro. Who does he overthrow? Does somebody know? The Batista government, right? And then, I was going to tell you something else. Oh, the other two places. So we take Philippines, we puppet Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam. Puerto Rico and Guam. Okay, so Vietnam, 1887-ish, right, gets taken over, and then Ho Chi Minh has tried, just like Sun Yat-sen, where? China, has been trying to get independence, doesn't happen. Communist, because he's like, whatever, as long as whoever helps me to get independence for my country, that's all I care. 1940s, during World War II, who takes over all of Asia? Japan. Japan takes over all of Asia. Who comes back? Do you need to stand up? Who comes back? Who comes back after World War II? France comes back, and then Ho Chi Minh and everybody's like, no, get out! We don't want you here! 1946 to 1954, they have to what? Fight France. Finally, France is like, shit, okay, we'll go. And they leave, but then what? What's it called? What's the policy? Truman Doctrine, called the containment of communism to prevent the domino effect. EBD, 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 EBD of anything Cold War, anything Cold War. Truman Doctrine, domino effect, containment of communism. Go ahead. So then we come in, and then Vietnam. All of these guys get free, 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 free. How come Siam doesn't get free?
Buffer state.
Because it was never taken, because it was a buffer state. What is it today? Thailand. Go ahead. Myanmar, formerly called Burma, remained poor with ethnic tensions and was led by a repressive military. Go ahead. We've done this, right? Didn't we do this? We haven't said these yet? Oh, we're going to say them again. In the future, it's going to say them again. I don't know who this is. I don't know who this is, but it doesn't matter. Opposition party against military rule. She spent 15 years detained because of her efforts. Go ahead. I mean, you're not going to remember that name. Go ahead. Her party took control of the government. She won a Nobel Peace Prize, and the military rule had ended. Go ahead. And then the Myanmar Rohingya, just like within the past few years, again, they've tried to massacre them. Just literally in the past couple of years, they've tried to massacre the Rohingya again. Go ahead. Who were fleeing. Philippines gained independence from U.S. in 46. Oh, I thought it was 48. Huh. That's better for me. Because then we have 46, 47, 48. 46 is who? Philippines, 47. India, 48. Israel. Have we got it? Say it. Philippines. Do say it in order. Philippines. India. Israel. Go again. Philippines.
India. Israel.
It's alphabetical order. India, Israel. Got it? It's in alphabetical order. Philippines, India, Israel, 46, 47, 48. Got it? Self-determination. Again, self-determination also EBD, right? Woodrow Wilson's 14 points, right? That's what's happening in the decolonization is what does everybody want? Independence, self-determination, independence heroes. Go ahead. Oh, the Dutch, Indonesia, so Vietnam, we've done this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. There's Ho Chi Minh Trail. Why does Nixon bomb Cambodia? What's he bombing? Supply lines that are bringing weapons, people, humans to go fight. The Viet Minh are in the north. The Viet Cong are in the south. Famously, he's like, I don't care about political ideology. I care about a free what? Us, free Vietnam. Go ahead. Yep. And then you have to know why do we freaking go to war? We go on a lie. What's it called?
Oh,
The Gulf of Tonkin incident. The Gulf of Tonkin incident. We say we got attacked. We say we got attacked. We say we got attacked. For years and years and years, what? We say we got attacked. Later, after we've been at war for a long time, what? We weren't attacked. We weren't attacked. The Vietnam War began with the alleged firing on American ships in the Gulf of Tonkin. Go ahead. And then communists in the north, Viet Cong in the south. Go ahead. This is what you have to care. This is Kennedy when he takes office. This is Kennedy. What's he almost do? Possibly going to take us out of Vietnam. It may be why he was murdered. It may be why he was assassinated. There's a lot of different reasons why he might have been assassinated. 1964, LBJ takes over, and then what? Skyrockets. And then this one's Nixon. 1968 is one of the most dangerous years in the history of the earth. What happened specifically in 1968 in the United States that makes it so violent is that's when we bombed Cambodia. And so what happened on the earth in the United States of America? Anti-war protests, anti-war protests, anti-war protests, anti-war protests. Remember that same time about the Tet Offensive that it showed that we were just destroying these people? Same time as the My Lai massacre that said that we were killing women, children, and old men, and they found them in mass graves later that proved that we really, really had done that. It's the same time that we are having the kids that are on the news with what? The little girl's naked on that picture because? Napalm, she's burning, her skin is burning. And so these poor Vietnam vets who had to go there with what? What's it called? The birthday draft. They come home and are like, what? I I mean, what do you want from us? You know, why they're being disparaged and called baby killers and everything else? What are they doing? They were doing what they were told. They're like, we didn't even want to go there. Why are you hating me? When what? I don't want to go there in the first place. You made me go. And now I come home and now you hate me? I was just trying to come back alive. You'll see all this stuff. I think May 15th, the Vietnam vets are coming. I'm sad though, the Vietnam vets that we have, I love them, I love them, I love them. But every one of them joined the military. What am I saying? None of them were drafted. None. You understand? That's a big difference. A lot of them are like colonels and, you know, high brass. I really wish I had somebody that had been drafted and had no choice to be there. It'd be an entirely different story. Go ahead. Hot landing zones. Go ahead. There's no clear enemy. We don't know who we're fighting. My Lai massacre. Napalm. Go ahead.
Why do they use the same stuff?
I don't know. I mean, I bought it. It's my fault. I should have reviewed it better. The Tet Offensive was a military victory for us. Why you laugh? Because I should have done my job better?
No.
Yeah, I mean, they're all redundant. That's why we get to fly. Yeah. The Tet Offensive was a military victory for us, but it was on the news, and therefore what? A political disaster, because it showed us just destroying people. Go ahead. Nixon, you have to know Vietnamization. It's simply a changing of the color of the bodies. Before, it was our boys that were being killed and killed and killed and killed and killed and killed and killed. Vietnamization is saying, okay, screw that. We're going to start sending fewer troops, and we will train the South Vietnamese to go fight instead of us. Instead of us fighting, we'll make them go fight. And like they said famously, we're just changing the color of the bodies. Vietnamization, that's a Nixon policy. Go ahead. And then in 1975, ultimately, we're getting on helicopters at the top of buildings because they bombed the airports. What's happening in 75? 73 is when we left. What's happening in 75? North Vietnam is where? Right on the outskirts of Saigon. Rushing into Saigon, they've blown up the airport. Can you make that go away? The only way we can get out of Vietnam is what? Get to the top of these buildings and get in these helicopters and get out of there. A lot of those people are South Vietnamese people trying to get on those helicopters as well as all the Americans. Why? The moment all those helicopters are gone, what? They're dead. They are dead. Go ahead. No event in history is more misunderstood. Of course, Nixon says that. Did we see this? Have we talked about this yet? Okay, it's going to be redundant. It's going to say it again later. So it's called the Quiet Revolution. After the American Revolution, the British granted Canadian provinces a degree of home rule. They don't want them to have a revolution too. Do you get it? So they gave them home rule. What about today with Canada? It's part of the British Empire. King Charles is still their king. Go ahead. Canada, mostly British, but was former French colony with large French minority. How many people? Quebec. Go ahead. One of my favorite students from Florida was from Quebec. The British North American Act joined Quebec. All of those. Canada was granted independence after a series of agreements with Britain. It still remains part of the British Commonwealth today. The oldest province is Quebec. You know that part? Quiet Revolution saw significant reforms in Quebec and a growing desire for independence from British-controlled Canada for Quebec. Even still today, people are saying what? We should be our own country. We don't want to be you. Some French Canadians resorted to terrorist bombings. Trudeau, that's the Prime Minister today's father, brokered a peace, and a 1995 vote for independence narrowly failed. Quebec almost got independence in 95. Okay? Explain political changes that led to territorial, demographic, and nationalist developments. What does this word equal? Self-determination, independence, freedom. Explain the economic changes and continuities resulting from the process of decolonization. I forgot to say this. We have to talk about this. I forgot to say this.